Hey YouTube, this is Tony and I'm back again, this time with a work in progress of the Superman adopted son body. If you saw my other video, I customized the bust and painted that up. And I've now started just with the lighter tone, so I've done the skin tone on the hands again, and I've done the belt and also the S. I've actually done a bit of a lemon yellow just so that it doesn't look too cartoony. So just yellow with a little bit of white just to tone it down. So the very next step now is that I want to paint the S and the border. So I'm going to use Silly Putty and just fill up all those little gaps just to make sure I don't paint over that. And then the same with the belt, the two little bits of red that need to be painted there. So that's obviously where the belt slips through. So I will obviously do a little bit of Silly Putty on the belt just to make sure that I don't paint red onto the belt. So quite a tedious process. It will probably take a good hour. The trick here is this is actually raised, so I want to be able to catch the underside, or the sides of the actual raised shield. I've mastered all off now with Silly Putty. I'm finding that the tools are sticking to the Silly Putty, so I'm using my plastic sculpting tools. So maybe I'm supposed to be using something metallic. So what I tried to do was initially kind of get in there to kind of pull the Silly Putty away from the edge so that I could give that raised look. But I think what I'm going to have to do is actually paint that by hand. So I've done the best I can, obviously also for the belt, and I will now be doing a few coats of the red. A few coats of red and it's looking pretty good. Obviously quite messy, it's sprayed up all over the body as well as over the Silly Putty. But obviously I'm going to remove the Silly Putty next, and we'll see that lovely contrast between the red and the yellow. All the Silly Putty has now been removed. It actually took a lot longer than I thought. I don't know if it's because of the permaseal that I use. That's my sealing agent. That's this guy here. It gives quite a gloss, smooth finish. And it could be that the Silly Putty is sticking to that. But I managed to pull all the Silly Putty off without damaging the paint job. So the next step now, if I can just zoom in there, so obviously, we've got like a bit of a wall there along the embossed symbol. So I'll need to go in there with the paintbrush and touch all of that up. Obviously trying to, create a very flat layer of Silly Putty was really difficult, so I couldn't really pull it off. So I just need to touch those up with by hand. Same with the belt. Going to just need to go in on the sides. Again, looking at it from a distance, it actually looks great. I don't know if I really need to go and touch to make it perfect, but I'll take a stab at it. So what I'll first do is I'm going to spray it again with my clear coat just to protect it, and then so that when I start doing everything by hand I can just wipe any spillage off or any mistakes off. Also in terms of tone, I went for a kind of a brick red color. I really like the coloring that they used for Superman Returns. So I'm going to have that slightly darker red, which was Ferrari red, mixed with a tiny bit of black. So then the next steps will be then doing the blue. I'm going to do a nice bright blue as well, same as Superman Returns. Same again now for the blue. I've gone and masked everything off using the Silly Putty. And for the larger area here, I'm just going to use a bit of cling film so I don't have to mask it all up. Same again for the hands, I've just done the edges and I'll then cover that with cling film. This has taken probably about 3 coats of blue. I'm using the FW Acrylics range, actually proving to be really nice compared to the Model Eva Yellow in terms of tip dry. It doesn't seem to dry at the tip very much at all. And I'm mixing that with a tiny percentage of white just to lighten it up a bit. This is actually looking a lot light at the moment. I've got my daylight lamp on here. It's quite dark. This is going to be the base obviously, and then I'll be applying highlights in the biceps and things like that just to bring out some of the additional detail. So I just have that propped up at the moment. I've painted it everywhere. So yeah, very lovely blue. And yeah, so next up, highlights using the same blue base but just adding a little bit more white. Just to lighten that up a bit. Unfortunately, I found that the Silly Putty didn't give me a sharp enough edge, so what I was ending up finding that I'd kind of smeared some of the Silly Putty onto the actual body and off the emblem. So what I've done is I've kind of cleaned it up again, and now painstakingly have gone in with Tamiya masking tape, cut short little pieces, and have just trailed that all along the edge of the raised symbol. And then just for the top, I've just gone in there with a bit of cling film and stuck that on. And yeah, very time consuming, and hopefully I'll get a nice tight edge. And that concludes the paint up of the torso. I had to do a little bit of touching up just around the symbol. Even though I had applied masking tape, even then it wasn't as perfect as I'd liked it to have been. So the silly putty was pretty good. Went in again with the masking tape, still wasn't perfect. So I actually had to do old school with the paintbrush, magnifying glass, and actually just hitting the sides of the symbol. It looks pretty good from where I'm standing. I can see one or two slight imperfections, but I don't want to spend forever on this. I'm pretty happy with that result as it stands. I applied a gloss coat to the symbol just to give it a bit of a sheen. It's got a slight texture to it, so I didn't spray it wet. If you've seen any of my other videos, you can get a bit of a textured effect if you just airbrush from a little bit of a distance. And for the hands and the suit, the blue, I applied a satin coat, which is just a mixture of 20% matte varnish to 80% gloss varnish. I guess I could knock that back a little bit more. I guess I'll see what that looks like once he's all completely built up. But stick around. My next video I will conclude the entire paint up. I'll be doing the legs and the cape. So stick around. See you soon.